There's just something about standing in an old building, isn't there? You can almost feel the history in the walls, the echoes of lives lived,
Oh, absolutely. They have a certain character.
and it makes you wonder, how do we keep these amazing structures around? How do we, breathe new life into them? Not just a quick fix, but really preserve them.
Yeah, for the long haul.
Exactly. And that's the fascinating question we're plunging into today. Can hemp specifically, hemp-derived components, help these, say, 100-year-old wooden buildings stand strong for another century,
Mm.
maybe even longer?
It's a great question. And the material you sent over, well, it really got me thinking. What's compelling is this idea of using nature to sort of nurture these historic buildings.
Right.
It's maybe less about finding one single magic bullet and more about understanding how different parts of the hemp plant can contribute to the long-term health, the stability of old wood. So our goal in this deep dive really is to explore these different applications. You've got the oil, hempcrete, insulation, see what makes them tick, where they shine, and importantly, how they compare to the traditional methods people might know.
Give folks the essential info without getting totally bogged down.
Exactly. Concise but insightful.
Okay, let's start with something that might raise an eyebrow, maybe. Hemp oil.
Hmm.
When you think wood preservation, you probably think, I don't know, strong chemicals.
Right. Potent stuff usually comes to mind.
But the sources we have here point to hemp seed oil as a surprisingly effective natural alternative. It's not about creating some kind of plastic shield. It's more about nourishing the wood.
From the inside out, that's a really key distinction to make right away. What's interesting here is how the hemp seed oil interacts with the wood fibers themselves.
Oh, so.
Well, it soaks into the grain, right?
Yeah.
And doing that provides a level of protection against moisture. And look, anyone who's dealt with old buildings knows moisture is often enemy number one.
Yeah, causes cracking, warping, rot,
Yeah.
the works.
Precisely. The oil helps keep that at bay. Plus, it's worth noting it has some mild antifungal and antibacterial properties, like a subtle extra layer of defense.
Yeah.
And compared to something like linseed oil, which people might know as a traditional Finnish hemp seed oil, is much less likely to yellow over time. That's pretty crucial for preserving the original look of historic wood.
Yeah, you don't want everything turning orange. And the application sounds incredibly simple, too. Like almost too simple.
It really does. The material describes it as basically, sand the wood a bit, then just apply the oil generously, brush, cloth, whatever.
Right.
Let it soak in for, say, 30 to 60 minutes, then wipe off any excess, maybe a second coat after a day, just to really let it sink in.
And then just touch-ups. Annually or something.
Annually, maybe biannually, depends on exposure. And the big appeal for many, I think, is that it's non-toxic, eco-friendly. That's a huge win these days.
Absolutely. We're all thinking more about the impact of materials. Okay, so that's the oil. Let's pivot to something maybe more structural. Hempcrete.
Right. Hempcrete. Now, this isn't an oil, obviously. It's a composite material, usually hemp hurd, mixed with a lime binder. And its role in preserving old wood is quite different.
Okay.
Here, the key ideas are stabilization and, maybe surprisingly, breathability.
Breathability. Okay, that sounds a bit counterintuitive, doesn't it? You usually think of sealing things up tight to protect them.
You do, especially with modern construction. But for old buildings, letting them breathe is absolutely vital.
Okay, let's unpack that. Why is breathing so crucial?
Well, you have to remember many traditional materials, especially wood, are what we call hygroscopic.
Meaning they absorb moisture.
Exactly. They absorb and release moisture based on the humidity around them. Now, if you seal these materials up with modern, non-breathable insulation, you can actually trap moisture inside.
Ah, I see. And trapped moisture is bad news.
It's a recipe for disaster, like we said with the oil. Leads to rot in beams, structural elements. Hempcrete, though, is vapor permeable.
So it lets water vapor pass through.
Yes. It helps regulate the humidity within the wall by allowing moisture to move through it. It prevents that harmful buildup, reduces the risk of rot in the old wood significantly. It's like the building manages its own moisture.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. So how is it used in these restoration projects? Is it like replacing plaster?
It's often used as infill, say, between timber framing, where the old wattle and daub or maybe brick infill has degraded.
Okay.
You'd remove the damaged stuff, then apply the hempcrete. It can also be kind of cast around wooden members for support and insulation. But the key is it shouldn't completely suffocate the wood. The wood still needs some airflow.
Right.
And the sources also stress using lime plasters over the hempcrete. Lime is also breathable, so it maintains that whole system, respects how the building was originally designed to work.
Interesting. So it's not just stopping rot, it's improving the building's performance overall. The source mentioned thermal mass and fire resistance too. What's thermal mass about?
Yeah, good point. Think of thermal mass like a heat sponge. It absorbs warmth, say, from the sun during the day and releases it slowly at night.
So it helps regulate temperature.
Exactly. Keeps it cooler in summer, warmer in winter can mean real energy savings. And the fire resistance is a big safety plus, especially in older buildings that might not meet modern codes.
And it's lightweight, you said.
Relatively lightweight, yeah. Which is good when you're dealing with potentially fragile old framing. You don't want to overload it.
Makes sense.
Mm.
Okay, so we've got oil for the wood surface, hempcrete for walls. What about like insulating attics or floors? Does hemp have an answer there too?
It does. Hemp fiber insulation often comes as like hemp wool or bats, similar to fiberglass or mineral wool bats.
Okay, and where does that get used?
Pretty much anywhere you'd use conventional insulation attics, inside walls, under floors. A key benefit here is its natural resistance to pests, mold, and mildew.
Oh, that's huge.
Mm.
Because those things can damage the wood around the insulation too, right?
Absolutely. Some traditional insulation can unfortunately become a haven for pests or hold moisture that leads to mold, indirectly damaging the structure. Hemp insulation avoids a lot of that.
And it sounds like it's probably better for indoor air quality too.
Mm-hmm.
The sources mentioned no significant off-gassing.
Correct. Unlike some foam insulations, for example. And it doesn't trap moisture like maybe fiberglass can if the vapor barriers aren't perfect. It still provides good thermal and acoustic insulation, and it maintains that crucial vapor permeability we talked about with hempcrete.
So it lets the structure breathe even when insulated.
Exactly. And the material points out it's valuable for preserving interior wood without really invasive work. If you want to insulate an older place without ripping out all the original plaster, maybe blowing in loose-fill hemp insulation could be a less disruptive option.
It's really fascinating how these different hemp bits address different problems, from the wood surface to the wall structure to the insulation cavity.
It covers a lot of bases.
And it's exciting to hear there's ongoing research too, into like biocomposites and treatments.
Yeah, briefly mention, looking at hemp-based bioresins extracts, things that could potentially strengthen or protect wood even more in the future, it definitely paints hemp as a material with a lot of potential still being explored in green restoration.
Which really brings us to the crunch question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How does hemp seed oil, specifically the direct wood treatment, how does it actually stack up against the traditional stuff, the polyurethanes, the varnishes, the chemical preservatives?
Right. This is where the practicalities really come in. The material you shared had that helpful side-by-side comparison, which is useful.
Yes, let's dive into that because this is probably what people thinking about using it really need to know. So first off, water and moisture effectiveness. Hemp seed oil is rated moderate.
Moderate, yeah. It penetrates, helps repel water, but it's not creating that kind of bulletproof plastic barrier like, say, a good polyurethane.
So it protects differently.
It's a different mechanism. Synthetics often form a hard surface film. Hemp oil works more by saturating the fibers within the wood.
Okay. What about UV protection? Sunshine.
Yeah, that's a weaker point for hemp oil. The comparison rates it low for UV protection. Many traditional preservatives have UV blockers added, giving moderate to high protection.
So if you've got wood getting blasted by sun all day.
Hemp seed oil alone might struggle long term, unless maybe it's combined with something else or you're very diligent about reapplying it frequently.
Okay. Mold and fungi resistance.
Hemp seed oil gets a good rating here, especially if you boost it with things like a bit of lime or certain essential oils. Traditional chemical treatments, though, often aim for and achieve high resistance because of the biocides they contain.
Right. And pests. Similar story.
Pretty similar. Mild resistance for hemp seed oil may be improved with citrus or lime additives. High for traditional treatments that often contain actual pesticides.
So you see the pattern. Traditional stuff is often stronger, more aggressive protection, but uses chemicals. Hemp is gentler, more natural, maybe needs a boost sometimes.
That sums it up pretty well. It's a different philosophy of protection.
And longevity reflects that too. Hemp seed oil needs reapplying, every 6 to 18 months?
Depending on wear and exposure, yeah. Whereas a good polyurethane finish might last 5, maybe even 10 years before needing serious attention.
That's a big difference in maintenance frequency.
It is. It's definitely a trade-off. You're exchanging that longer interval for perhaps a more involved relationship with the wood's upkeep. Regular care versus a potentially tougher but maybe less breathable long-term seal.
But then we get to safety and environment. And here, hemp oil shines.
Absolutely. Safety for humans and pets is rated excellent. Non-toxic, no harmful VOCs, volatile organic compounds.
Which can be a real issue with traditional finishes, especially indoors or during application, lots of fumes.
Right. Traditional preservatives vary, but many do contain toxic VOCs. And environmentally, again, excellent for hemp seed oil. Biodegradable, renewable resource, low impact production.
Compared to traditional options, often petroleum-based, high VOCs, more energy intensive, rated poor to mixed.
It really lays bare the core choice, doesn't it? Are you prioritizing that maximum, long-lasting, robust protection even with potential health and environmental question marks?
Or do you lean towards the safer, greener option, accepting it might need more frequent TLC?
Exactly.
Application-wise, hemp oil is simple. Wipe on, wipe off.
Can't get much easier. Traditional finishes vary. Some are easy brush-ons, others need careful sanding, maybe special tools, ventilation.
And the final look.
Yeah.
Hemp oil gives that natural satin or matte finish, really enhances the wood grain.
Yeah, very natural look. Traditional finishes offer a much wider range: high gloss, semi-gloss, satin, matte. So aesthetics play a role too. You avoid that slightly plastic look you can sometimes get.
Right, and avoids that yellowing we mentioned, which is key for antiques or historic interiors.
Definitely preserves that original character better in some ways.
Okay, so putting all that comparison together, when does hemp seed oil really make the most sense for these older buildings? Where is it the clear winner?
Well, the material gives some good examples. It's excellent for things like indoor furniture, interior beams, floors, places not getting hammered by weather.
Makes sense.
Also, outdoor wood that's somewhat protected, maybe a covered porch. Heritage restorations where maintaining that natural, traditional look and feel is paramount.
And crucially, places where safety is top priority. Kids' furniture, pet areas.
Exactly. In those situations, maybe slightly less water resistance or needing more frequent reapplication is a totally acceptable trade-off for the peace of mind regarding toxicity and environmental impact.
But the sources are also clear. For really harsh outdoor exposure decks, siding getting constant sun and rain, hemp seed oil alone might not cut it.
Probably not for the long haul, no. Unless, like we touched on, you combine it with something breathable lime wash, maybe a natural wax finish over it for more water repellency, or you're just committed to that more frequent reapplication schedule.
Right, treating it more like other natural oils that also need regular upkeep outdoors.
Exactly. It's about understanding the demands of the specific spot. For those really tough exterior jobs, maybe a more robust, possibly less natural solution is needed for the finish itself. But even then, using hempcrete or hemp insulation elsewhere in the building still brings those other benefits.
And that pro tip section in the material was interesting, suggesting ways to boost hemp seed oil.
Yeah, that's neat. Mixing it with things like beeswax or carnival wax to improve water resistance.
Okay.
Adding citrus oil like D-limone to help it penetrate deeper and add some mold resistance. Or even adding small amounts of hydrated lime to raise the pH slightly, which can help deter fungi and pests.
So you can kind of customize it, create your own natural blends.
Seems like it. That's often the beauty of these natural solutions. You're not always stuck with an off-the-shelf product. You can potentially tailor treatments using other natural ingredients.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all together. What's the main takeaway here about using hemp to preserve these precious old wooden buildings?
I think the core message is that hemp offers a really solid set of options. Viable, safe, sustainable options, especially for restoration and for people moving towards more, conscious building practices.
Right.
It might not always give the same level of heavy-duty, instant, long-lasting protection as some synthetic chemicals.
It's not Kevlar for wood.
Exactly. But it really excels in crucial areas like ensuring breathability, which is vital for old structures, plus safety for people, safety for the environment, and just having a much lower overall impact.
So it's less about putting this impenetrable armor on the wood and more about nurturing it. I think one source used that word.
That's a great way to put it, nurturing. It emphasizes needing proper application, yes, and a commitment to ongoing care. But maybe that fosters a closer connection to the building's health.
A more hands-on relationship with preservation.
Precisely. And this really brings up a final thought, maybe something for listeners to mull over. As we try to preserve these pieces of history, how do we strike that balance? The balance between wanting immediate, maybe chemically driven durability and the long-term value of using eco-conscious, breathable, natural solutions. What does ensuring longevity truly mean for these buildings? Is it just stopping decay at any cost? Or is it also about creating healthier environments inside them and being kinder to the world around them while we do it? It's a fascinating crossroads of history, building science, and our responsibility to the future, really.